that there were great concerns. There were concerns up the street, and she said I needed to come home immediately, get on the next plane to the U.S. And I asked her why, and she said she wasn't sure, but there were concerns about my security. I asked her my physical security, because sometimes Washington knows more than we do about these things, and she said no, she hadn't gotten that impression that it was a physical security issue, but they were concerned about my security, and I needed to come home right away. I argued this is extremely irregular, and no reason given. But in the end, I did get on the next plane.
That was former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, testifying back in November, recalling an unknown concern that had arisen about her physical security, forcing her to come back to the U.S. We now have clarity as to what concern actually was after records were turned over yesterday by Lev Parnas's attorneys, bringing a new figure to the spotlight of the Ukraine scandal. GOP candidate for Congress in Connecticut, Robert Hyde. Documents appear to show that Hyde was tracking Yovanovitch's physical movements along with her computer and phone. The documents also include WhatsApp exchanges from March 2019 between Parnas and Hyde, where they appear to be discussing Yovanovitch. The messages do not mention the ambassador by name, but include links to stories about her and were from around the time Giuliani was pushing to get her fired. They suggest that the president had already decided once to remove her, but may have changed his mind. However, according to NBC News, Hyde said he was drinking when he sent the messages to Parnas. In a text to NBC News, Hyde attacked House Intelligence Committee Chair Adam Schiff in colorful terms. Yovanovitch's lawyer is now calling on authorities to investigate whether she was, in fact, being monitored. Let's bring in national political reporter for NBC News, Josh Letterman.
Josh, what can you tell us?
Well, this has just been a really bizarre turn of events. Just when we thought that all the facts had basically come out in the impeachment saga, this bombshell last night, new text messages, even this new character, Robert Hyde, who we had no idea until last night was even involved in any of this. In addition to those really menacing texts that you were just describing that suggest that they might have had Yovanovitch under surveillance, there was also those handwritten notes that you showed earlier showing Lev Parnas, this indicted Giuliani associate, basically organizing the plot they were going to carry out, talking about getting Zelensky to announce investigations. Also, this new, previously undisclosed letter from Rudy Giuliani to President Zelensky saying he was acting with Trump's knowledge and permission in trying to seek a meeting with Zelensky. And the upshot of this really is going to be additional pressure on Senate Republicans and Mitch McConnell in particular to allow witnesses, not to try to shut that down in the process, now that it's clear that there are new people, new events that occurred in this story that House Democrats really weren't able to get to during the House impeachment hearings.
You know, Willie, and here's one more thing where, again, people say, well, did Nancy Pelosi hold the articles too long? Think about everything that we have learned since they've been held. I know she's under pressure by Democrats to send them over. I'd like to know why. Because this is going to keep coming out. I mean, we're going to keep learning new things like this.
Yeah, well, as Josh says, we didn't even know about this character, Robert Hyde. We didn't know of, obviously, this, what looks like surveillance of the U.S. ambassador over there, Josh.
From associates of the president's personal
Giuliani.
lawyer who was sent to Ukraine for this.
So, Josh, obviously these documents were provided to the House Intelligence Committee by Lev Parnas's attorney. They're redacted. Yovanovitch's name isn't used there, but when you look at the context, it's pretty clear who they're talking about. So I guess my question to you is this what it appears to be, which is what Joe just laid out, associates of the president's personal attorney conducting surveillance on a United States ambassador, physical surveillance?
Well, look, if it wasn't that, then there have been plenty of opportunities for Robert Hyde to say so and for others around him and Parnas to say so. And when I was texting with Robert Hyde last night, I asked him explicitly. So, you know, when you say you were drinking with your buddies when you sent these text messages, are you saying that you weren't actually having a surveillance operation on Ambassador Yovanovitch? He won't answer that at all. And we know, as you were mentioning, there were security concerns related to her. Ambassador Yovanovitch now saying there's got to be an investigation into this. We got to look into whether a U.S. senior diplomat was having possibly both her physical movements and her electronic telephonic communications being monitored. So far, no word from the government or the State Department about whether they will carry that out. But by all appearances, you know, there was a lot more going on behind the scenes here than we knew about.
So you've been talking to this guy, Hyde, Robert Hyde. How does he fit into this picture? He's a guy who's given a lot of money to the Republican Party. He's given money to the Trump campaign and the re-election effort. We know all of that. But did he deputize himself to lead this surveillance of a United States ambassador in Ukraine? Like, where did he come from?
Yeah, it's not really clear how he got pulled into this, and he also wouldn't answer that question to me last night. But, Willie, this kind of fits this pattern of a lot of Republicans that we've seen who have ingratiated themselves with the president and in his orbit by making a lot of contributions towards the start of the administration, showing up at events at Mar-a-Lago and fundraisers, that kind of thing, and basically finding their way into this circle in proximity to the president. We know that his congressional campaign, the very front page of his website, is a big old picture of him with President Donald Trump. So by all appearances, he was trying to provide some assistance or get involved in what was clearly a top priority for the president in hopes of being able to project himself as a close associate of President Trump.
And Jonathan Lemire, I mean, we don't know exactly how all the dots connect, but Mika was just looking at a story that said Hyde was at the World Series game attended
He's got this video
by
with
Donald
Kevin
Trump.
McCarthy.
He's got video with Kevin McCarthy, who, of course, you know,
Got money.
Giuliani's henchman gave Kevin McCarthy money for his campaign. You have Giuliani specifically going to Ukraine to dig up dirt on Biden and to push out a U.S. ambassador. These guys are over there. The henchmen are over there. Hyde's over there. And an American ambassador is being tailed by somebody that appears to be connected to the president's attorney, or at the very least, the president's attorney's henchman. It's all, I mean, this is more, this is what they do in Russia, right? Right? Is this what they do in Russia, where they follow their people in other countries to make sure they're sufficiently loyal? This is because if this has happened in America before, where a president's personal attorney hires henchmen who are now indicted, of course. I mean, I'd like a parallel in American history, because there's not one. Now, that is important to talk about. You know what's more important, though? A phone call that may never have happened 2 years ago.
When the ambassador testified late last year as part of the impeachment inquiry, she talked about being unsafe, that she felt like she felt threatened, but didn't really fill in a lot of the details. And that's what this does right here, that perhaps there was surveillance, both electronic and physical, on her, which of course would be unnerving. Let's remember, she was summoned back to the United States. She was given a warning, like, you need to get on the next plane back.
Has Pompeo said anything about this? Has Pompeo criticized anybody about this, about a U.S. ambassador's safety? Being at risk and being told to get on a plane and go home because she's not safe. Has Pompeo said has he spoken out about this incident as well?
He certainly hasn't spoken about this latest revelations, no, and his, you know, he was been very guarded in what he has said. At times, he of course would back the president rather than sort of State Department actors. He would seemingly, you know, side with the commander-in-chief rather than people who work for him in Foggy Bottom. And the other piece of yesterday, the other document that's really important here, and Josh mentioned it, is the idea that it's a letter from Rudy Giuliani requesting a private meeting with Ukraine's President Zelensky, and saying he was doing so with President Trump's, quote, knowledge and consent, which of course undermines what the president has said, that Giuliani was acting on his own. I didn't order him to go over there or not. So that's another piece of, like, crucial information that we are now aware of as the impeachment